Hey everyone, John here! And when I first started off at GVG a while ago now, I made a big document of videos that I want to cover, and there's still quite a few that I have not gotten around to, but near the top of the list was this game here, Sega Superstars, for the PlayStation 2 EyToy. I grew up with this game, I love it so much, but as I tend to do, I went off the deep end, and so we're not just talking about Sega Superstars for the PS2 EyToy, we're talking about all of these as well. Every Sega Superstars game, every variant of every Sega Superstars game. We're talking console, we're talking PC with exclusive stuff, we're talking handhelds, we're talking mobile. We've played and covered everything, even games that technically don't exist anymore. So strap yourselves in and prepare to be a superstar. Take it away, pre-recorded John. It was a brave new world when Sega went third-party. Sonic Adventure went to the GameCube, Outrun went to Xbox, Virtua Fighter went to PlayStation 2. If you never had a Sega system before, then catching up was really easy. Like with Sonic Mega Collection Plus, that was more than just Sonic games, that had Rise Star, The Ooze, Comic Zone. But let's say you already know Sonic. He's the gateway drug. What is the ultimate slice of Sega that'll make you more than just a Sonic fan? Well, for me, it was this, the original Sega Superstars for the EyToy. I remember getting this for Christmas when I was around 10 years old, in a bundle with the EyToy. It cost around £40, which for something bundled with a peripheral is unheard of today. I actually got a ton of mileage out of the EyToy itself. This was my first webcam. You could just plug it into a PC and use it on MSN Messenger, and my friends did the exact same thing. I played Sega Superstars so much. It may even be one of my most played PlayStation 2 games of them all, and that's very worrying to go back to. What if this game doesn't hold up? Well, don't you worry, Sega Superstars still bangs! We're not crossing over Sega worlds with this one, but instead there are 12 different franchises adapted into motion-controlled games. So let's go through them real quick. But before we do, first, a word from our sponsor.
As a kid, I really struggled with oily skin and acne. I tried creams and face washes, and nothing I got my hands on ever worked for me. As an adult, I've been left with scars and rough skin, and it's hurt my confidence a lot. But then a package from the heavens descended upon my doorstep. Enter Geology. It's a simple, effective, and personalized skincare routine. All you need to do is fill out this 60-second quiz to get your own personal derm-grade skincare routine. When your box arrives, you'll get a set of directions, and your bottles are labeled with when and how to use them. I really struggle with routine building, so having it all laid out makes it so easy. And I'm really surprised at the results. My skin just feels better. I'm experiencing confidence I've never had before, so use our code in the description below to get 70% off your own personalized skincare trial set. You'll love it. Thanks to Geology for being superstars and partnering with us on today's video. Back to the other superstars.
The Sonic one's based off the Sonic Hero special stages. You've just got to avoid spikes, collect rings, and try and nabble 7 Chaos Emeralds. This makes you Super Sonic, so at the very end you can just blast through and collect a bunch of rings taking no damage. Sonic's tracking your arm for movement with this one, and it's pretty damn responsive for a 320 by 240 camera. I find the EyToy kinda works best in, like bad lighting. The better I light myself, the harder of a time it seems to have. And I don't know if it's just muscle memory, but I blasted my way through the Sonic game. You unlock the Shadow version after doing all the difficulties, and his are even harder. Even his easy mode is harder, but apparently not hard enough, baby. This is a rad one, and Sonic's model here is banging. I like this way more than Heroes. Look at this. Delightful. Every time you finish a game, your score gets converted to rings, and with those rings, you can go to the Chow Garden, which, unless we count the Chow Garden in Sonic Chronicles, which I don't, this is the last time Sega did a Chow Garden, and it's really good too. The load screen starts off just showing you an egg, but once you've hatched your Chow, it starts doing cute little things like dancing or playing the trumpet, or just kind of staring at you. Anyway, the rings can be used in the black market, and things are not cheap here. You've got to play so much to get your Chow a TV. You can feed it a lot of cake though. Yosh. Oh, so you're a Monkey Ball fan, huh? Show me your EyToy speedrun. The Monkey Ball game takes stages directly from the main game, only now you use your arms to move. And I struggled with this so much as a kid. I don't think I found the right EyToy lighting, but it was super responsive this time. I really liked it. And this was my first introduction to Samba de Amigo, which I've gone on to adore. It's a great conversion too. You just kind of wave at each of the icons to shake your maracas, and the track selection is pretty varied as well. There's even some DLC tracks from the main game for doing all the difficulties. As far as Samba de Amigos go, I think I'd rank this above some of the main games. With Virtua Fighter, I think you're meant to stand further back than the other games, but I don't care. I'm a giant and I'm gonna kill people. It's pretty simple going on the easier difficulties, but this can be a proper workout on the harder ones. And House of the Dead is totally rad. Instead of shooting zombies with a light gun, you just smack all the zombies around while trying to not smack the women because otherwise they smack you. You get full-on boss battles too. A lot of these Superstars games genuinely feel like more than minigames. This is pretty elaborate. And my introduction to Space Channel 5 as well. I remember picking this up on Dreamcast not long after playing Sega Superstars, and it's pretty similar to what Samba de Amigo did, but like different vibes. Choo Choo Rocket's a really cool one. You've just got to keep these gates open for the mice, but then drop them for the cats. It doesn't really resemble Choo Choo Rocket gameplay that much, but it's still a really neat puzzle game. Billy Hatcher? That doesn't feel legal. You're only for GameCube, Billy. This is probably the one that I struggled with most. You've got to keep waving your hands on the left and right icon here to push the egg forward, but then let go to push just to the left or just to the right, and my brain isn't wired for this. I end up squashing one enemy really well, but then miss the next one and just go spinning in a circle for ages until I find them again. Not my favorite one. But Virtua Soccer is totally rockin' though. It's a little similar to what Wii Fit did by giving the balls headers, but this time is way more fun. You've got to dive into the balls as they come down and make them smack balloons, but if you're fast enough, they can ricochet off and you can hit them again. It's just so simple but so fun. I played this one so much growing up. And Puyo Puyo Fever, this one's actually pretty complex. You've got to sync up in multiple spots before beginning. And look at this! This is just a little USB webcam. But now, the Puyos know exactly where you are. They can never lose you. It doesn't really resemble Puyo Puyo gameplay itself. You're just sort of sorting each color into their section while avoiding the bombs. But I think it's really impressive what they achieved here. Nights into Dreams. This is another one that I really struggled with as a kid, but it feels really natural now. You just hold your arms out like you're flying. You've got tilt up to go up, tilt down to go down. It's such a natural extension of Nights. And then Crazy Taxi. This is the most throwaway one. Instead of being a taxi driver, you're the passenger, and so you just wave your arms around and make a bunch of noise as if you're trying to signal a taxi. You get a bit of a workout doing it, but nothing else really to it. No Offspring either. You didn't license them for Sega Superstars? Come on, Sega. And that is all of them. Sega Superstars adapts a ton of these games really well, and other than Crazy Taxi, they feel more than just cheap throwaway minigames. Games like Sonic Mega Collection Plus and Sega Superstars are part of the reason that I'm a big Sega fan these days. And just like Sonic Adventure, the Chow Garden is such a great incentive to keep playing your favorite games over and over again. I don't think this is just rose-tinted glasses. This is such a great EyToy game, probably the best one, and a must-have for PlayStation 2. So, where did Sega Superstars go next? Well, technically, Sonic Riders, the cooler 2006 Sonic game. In the first one, Ai, Ooh La La, and Knights are unlockable characters, and there's 2 Sega stages crammed with Sega Superstars stuff. Sega Carnival takes you through Samba de Amigo, Billy Hatcher, Super Monkey Ball, and Crazy Taxi, while Sega Illusion takes you through Knights, Space Channel 5, and Choo Choo Rocket. Whereas Sonic Riders Zero Gravity has Knights, Amigo, and Billy Hatcher as playable characters, and then just kind of a Sega arcade district as the stage, not really a particular Sega game. If you want to see more of this stuff, we have a Sonic Riders video going more in depth on these crossovers and the game itself. They're really cool games. But anyway, the next official Sega Superstars game is one that I think deserves way more respect. Sega Superstars Tennis. People usually just shrug this off as a tennis game with Sonic in, and that's like saying that this is a tennis game with Mario in. And do you know how silly that sounds? Well, it probably sounds pretty reasonable to most normal people, but if you like Mario Tennis, then you'll go, no, there's more than that! And that's what I'm saying for this as well. It's cool. This is the HD version for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Mac. Yeah, not PC, just Mac. It's definitely a lot more Mario Tennis than it is Virtua Tennis. You get some really fast-paced, arcadey tennis mechanics, but on top of that, players also charge up a special with more hits that they return, and that's Supersonic playing tennis. It's a god with a tennis racket, and I fear this. Sometimes all these specials do is make the player faster, but also make their hits zigzag around, making them a bit unpredictable. But then there's also some, like the Dastardly Knights, who just sort of flip and teleport the other player to the other side of the court, so it's really hard to hit them back. This can't be tennis legal. The CPU can be a bit basic, but this game flips hard when playing with other people. Trust me. In the Sonic stages, they just kind of plops character models that they had lying around from other games in, and they don't know why they're here. They're not animated to watch the match. They just sort of idly look into the distance, nowhere near the tennis game. They are not watching this tennis match. This also released on Wii and PlayStation 2, and outside of missing online, which was a pretty big deal then, but not so much now, I actually love these versions. The courts look as if they've been pulled directly from the games they're from, so rather than a fancied up HD Jet Set Radio, you just look like you're playing Jet Set Radio, and I think that's pretty cool. The minigames are brilliant too, or just games as they refer to them. What's this then? Is this a game? You don't even play tennis in a few of them. I mean, you're holding a racket in the Sonic one, but you're not returning any balls, you're just collecting rings while avoiding the Sonic 06 robots and their energy balls. The Puyo Puyo one is awesome. You've got to aim the ball at the Puyo wall, but of course when you hit the Puyo, they disappear. So if you get a big red chain, then that's a big chunk of the wall gone. So you got to really learn to aim exactly how you hit the ball and where it goes, and eventually you go to fever mode because the fever mechanic is in here too. It's really elaborate for just a wall bouncing game. And Jet Set Radio, oh, this one bangs. This one bangs hard. You've got to grab the right color paint spray and then smack the ball into the right spot of the graffiti, and then change to the next color, all while avoiding the cops. I mean, hell yeah, this totally rocks. In Monkey Ball, you're trying to ricochet and bounce all the balls into the goal. In House of the Dead, you're trying to kill zombies with tennis. And look how freaking sick Choo Choo Rocket Tennis is. Like, look me in the eyes and tell me that this is a mid-game. You can't, because my eyes aren't on the camera. I'm not on screen at all. So you just look at this. I'm going to tell you it's rad. Two of them even use the Wii Remote pointer. In Space Harrier, you're shooting down attacks with the power of tennis. It feels a bit weird in Green Hill, but whatever. But Virtua Cop is just flippin' Virtua Cop. Only you're using a tennis ball instead of a gun. This is what my dreams look like. The Wii version supports both traditional and motion controls, apart from in the minigames, where for some reason waggle just isn't allowed. And it's weird because motion controls can do anything that regular controls can do. But I don't know. But I forgive it though, because the save icon uses the Sonic Advance sprite. And the disc looks like a tennis ball. What were you trying to pull here, HD version? Where's your green tennis ball looking overlay? I am so fond of Sega Superstars Tennis. It's absolutely on par with Mario Tennis, and the minigames are even further ahead. Their theming is so good, and they do an amazing job getting you familiar with the controls and accuracy of your shots. And there's characters that weren't in previous crossovers, like Alex Kidd, Gilius from Golden Axe, Beat from Jet Set Radio, and a bunch of secondary characters too. The courts have multiple tracks to choose from, not just the same one each time. To be unbiased and objective, all reviews from 2008 were wrong. This game's awesome. But 360, PlayStation 3, Mac, Wii, and PlayStation 2 weren't enough. There's also a DS version, and I love how Eggman looks here. Look at him. Mechanically, this doesn't feel one-to-one with console, but it still feels pretty nice. And I'm not sure you can entirely tell on the small screen, but all stages are pre-rendered in this one. It gives them a really cool look when you blow the image up. Outside of Funky Eggman, or even including Funky Eggman, the character models are all really good for the DS, and they squeezed in some pretty high-quality audio. The minigames will make their way over too, and instead of increasingly harder waves, this time you've got 10 missions each, which is pretty cool, nice single-player progression. But Space Harrier is way cooler than console. There's a bespoke Space Harrier stage this time, just for the mission. I mean, it's just basically a green grid, but it's rad as flip. The bottom screen just shows your score and not much else really. It does clean the top screen up, but I think it would have been rad to treat the gap between screens like the net and have really large playing fields on both screens, but it's still fun, even if it doesn't really use the DS features at all. So I love Sega Superstars Tennis, and you know what I want? I really want Sega Superstars Golf. Well, that kind of exists. Sega Splash Golf released just 1 month after Sega Superstars Tennis. A Japan, PC-only golf MMO? Like, you can talk to 50 players in the lobby and then play 8 at a time. You play as humans, but your coaches can be either Sonic, Tails, Knights, Ulala, Oppa Oppa from Fantasy Zone, the Puyos, and Carbuncle. The game officially only lasted a year and went offline in 2009, but fans were actively trying to revive it in 2023, although it's been pretty silent since then, but at least we've got HD video out of it. They had fish golf clubs. I need to play this. I want to play golf on Green Hill with a fish while Ulala coaches me through it. While the EyToy game, the Riders cameos, tennis, and the Lost Golf game are all brilliant in their own way, these days, I think people think racing when they hear Sega Superstars. And so Sega stormed back over to Sumo Digital and said, "Good job with Mario Tennis. Now make Mario Kart. We mean Sonic Kart." Not just Sega Superstars this time, but Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Sonic and Sega, he's disassociated from the group. Oh, and Banjo-Kazooie on 360. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Banjo-Kazooie. That is the official title. It's on the side of the box. It supports 360 avatars too, so this would be the best version of the game if performance wasn't a bit all over the place. You're best off sticking with PC, but unlike literally every other version of the game, this one doesn't have online play, because this was back when publishers still didn't really trust PC. So which one's the best version? Well, none of them really. But I still love this game. The opening Seaside Hill track with the 2 lanes crossover is iconic. And in its time, this was the generation's most successful Mario Kart clone. It was awesome seeing races like Rio from Shenmue, the Choo Choos from Choo Choo Rocket, and BD Joe from Crazy Taxi. And the tracks themselves are way more elaborate than just tennis courts, so racing through Billy Hatcher or House of the Dead feels like a theme park. It's a really cool celebration of Sega, married with great racing. But I think standards have gotten higher. There's 24 tracks in All-Stars Racing, which was already half the amount of Mario Kart Wii, and 2/3 of them are incredibly samey. You've got Sonic, Monkey Ball, Billy Hatcher, Jet Set Radio, House of the Dead, and Samba de Amigo. Not a bad selection, but then you break it down and it doesn't seem quite so good. Of all the Sonic tracks, 3 of them are set in Seaside Hill with the exact same music. I love the concept of love in Jet Set Radio Future, but again, 3 tracks use it and they all just bleed together. It's a very stretched out feeling game, and honestly, as big of a Monkey Ball fan as I am, I don't like any of the Monkey Ball tracks in this game. They're not terrible once you've learned them, but they're really hard to read with very sharp turns. I like the mission mode though. A big Mario Kart DS style single player with a bunch of mechanics you don't usually find in the main game. And there's a lot of them too. It's rad. The items are exactly what you think they'd be. There's mushrooms, green shells, red shells, banana peels, the super horn. They actually beat Mario Kart with the super horn by about 4 years. Cool. Mario Kart 8, you little Sonic and Sega All-Stars copycat. I really like that if you've got an item with multiple drops, you can just hold the button down and drop all of them at once, in one big horizontal line. Everyone's got a double dash style special item too, that transforms them into Super Sonic or the cats from Choo Choo Rocket, and they just demolish everything while giving you max acceleration even if you bump into a wall. This hasn't gone down as the best Sonic racer, but I'm still really fond of a bunch of tracks from this game. I love the opening Seaside Hill, I love Roulette Road, Shibuya Downtown. There's some really good ones in here. And just like Sega Superstars Tennis, they also downported this to 2 other systems, the Wii and the DS. And the Wii version is just delightful. Unlike Tennis, there's full parity this time. You can play the Wii game online and choose a Mii if you want to. The visuals hold up really well too. The full track selection is here, uncompromised with both motion and traditional controls. It does run at 30 FPS, but there's really no console version that's ideal. 360 is unlocked, PlayStation 3 is locked at 30 as well, so it doesn't really matter. DS, though, is exactly the kind of handheld conversion I love, where they just made a totally different game. But before we talk about that, this is like 2005 music you'd hear in a keygen, right? Not that I'd know. I saw a friend do it once. 10-year-old John would never use a keygen. But this version is so cool. Unlike any other console release, it hits 60 FPS and looks great doing so. The model quality is ahead of Mario Kart DS even. And while Seaside Hill feels like a close conversion to console, it then just dives somewhere else entirely. The tracks have all the same names, but their actual designs are completely different. This can be a fault occasionally, where some laps are like 28 seconds long, but other times these feel full-fledged and stand on their own brilliantly. The mechanics feel totally different too, especially the drift. You can sort of keep your drift going while kind of steering forward if you tilt just the right way. There's a learning curve to it, but it's not bad. And the mission mode is also totally different objectives. The soundtrack's really interesting too. They've all been redone to fit the DS, whereas the console version just rips them from other games. I'm pretty sure there's really no new tracks outside of menu themes for the console version. And you know what? I'm going to tip my hat to this version. If your favorite version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing is the DS version, then all the power to you. I think you're cool. This version also found its way to phones, but you know how phones are. If something brings you joy, they'll just delist it, so it doesn't exist anymore. And that brings us to the big boy. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. We've now dropped Sega, and we've dropped Banjo-Kazooie, but we've got Wreck-It Ralph now. So, the last game was good. Felt a bit low budget, but the core was nice. This one, though, corrects everything. I mean, let me just bullet point what's new in Transformed. The drifting has more strategy now. It takes longer to build, so you can't just cheese it, and there's that risk-reward of do you keep charging and risk being hit and losing everything, or do you keep building to a level 3 drift and zoom off? You can flip around with the right sticks and build up tricks to get a boost in the air. You can now transform from a cart to a boat to a plane on the fly throughout the course, and the course itself transforms with every lap, sometimes mildly and sometimes quite extreme. There's more Sega franchises, both playable and represented in tracks. Every single track is unique, there's no clone tracks this time. Almost all the music tracks are unique, barely any are just pulled directly from other games. There's a campaign mode which feels like you're building towards something, and every single platform has online play. Honestly, there's much more to say than this. Transformed is simply one of the best games ever made. And I would suggest playing this on PC, as every other version runs at 30 FPS or below, other than 360, which was patched with FPS boost on Series X, but that version doesn't have Football Manager, Team Fortress, Shogun, General Winters, or Willimus. They went nuts with the PC version. Only problem with this version is when you max out the settings, the lens flare can become way too extreme, to the point where you just can't see anything. So don't play maxed out, I guess. Transformed is simply a wonderful game with some of the most glorious tracks to grace a kart racer, both for nostalgia and just general awe. The Panzer Dragoon track, where on the final lap the dragon crumbles the terrain and forces you to fly, or Skies of Arcadia with its incredible music and stunning spectacle. It's amazing. And the items are so much more interesting too. Although none of them really resemble Sega, and they didn't really in the prior game either, but at least the speed boost was a shoe in the last one. Now it's just a boost. But regardless, you can send a swarm of bees to hit racers in the front, almost like a blue shell, except with good driving ability they can be avoided. There's still some luck involved, but it feels like a kart racer built around skill, where items work in balance of that skill. Ignore that I just got an all-star in second place, that does not aid what I'm saying. This isn't to say that Transformed is completely flawless. The boat physics can be a bit finicky at times, and I definitely had a few funny moments, but there's a very real argument for this being the best kart racer of all time. Every single track in the game is a delight. The roster is nuts, with flippin' Wreck-It Ralph and Danica Patrick, and the transformation mechanics are so fresh, both for the karts and the stages themselves. This is rightfully an all-time great, and it hasn't aged a single day. And on Wii U, we have some exclusive features. Wii U always wins, baby. This was a launch title for the system, and me and my friends played it so much. It's got a 5-player split screen, where the gamepad user gets their own display while the TV is split into 4. It doesn't particularly run great or look very good, but it's so cool that it can work. And there's also 2 exclusive Wii U battle modes. These are both asymmetric and pretty similar. There's Banana Heist and Ninja Tag. In Banana Heist, the gamepad user plays as a big old monkey ball, and you've just got to go around and squash all the other players. Whereas in Ninja Tag, the gamepad user is the tagger, and you've got to tag another player, and then they join you in your ninja squad to get everybody else. To be honest, I don't really know why these are Wii U exclusive. They could work on any platform, but, you know, it's cool that they exist at least. PC is absolutely still the best way to play this game, but it's still worth owning on Wii U for these. It's not much, but these are still fun, and you can play as a weirdly proportioned me on Wii U and 3DS. 360 has avatars as well. We're having all the fun. Although, one thing about the console versions, on PC you probably won't even be aware, but the loading music is pretty grating. Here it is on my PC for reference. You barely hear it.
Danica Patrick! Get ready!
On Wii U though, you hear it for ages when booting the game up, and then you hear it for 20 seconds whenever the game loads. It's not a pretty piece. But how about the portable versions of this game? Let's start with Vita, which is simply delightful. They squeeze the full-fledged console version down to the small screen, and nothing feels compromised. It looks amazing, it runs great for the most part, and you get all the buttons, even the right stick to do tricks with. It's so good. This is easily one of my favorite Vita games, and what was then a pretty complicated port to do, putting Transformed on the Vita. But you know what's even more complicated than that? Putting Transformed on 3DS. Let's just put 3DS and Vita side by side a moment. And it's a bit like looking at a prototype version of the game. 3DS not only has a major visual downgrade, but it also runs, frankly, terribly. Sometimes it even pauses to stutter. Now, clearly building a totally original game, like they did on the DS, is a big ask. It was very cool they did it back then, but that's more of an exception than a rule. Especially when Transformed exists on 360, PS3, Wii U, PC, and Vita. That's a lot of platforms, but this still isn't very good. I mean, it's commendable, it's content complete, all the tracks are here, the single player is here, online is here, but hoo boy, I'll be very impressed if you stuck with this version. I mean, at least it has a 3D effect, that's unique to this one. I mean, it makes it run even worse, but it is here, that's kind of cool. And you know what? There was a mobile version too, emphasis on was again. From what I can gather, this was pretty much a direct port of the console version as well, but with more mobile-y controls, although they sold off chunks of the game despite it already being a premium game. But the stage design looks one-to-one though. And that is kind of the end of our Sega Superstars journey. Every single one of these is a banger in their own right, but Transformed is not only one of the most improved sequels we've ever seen, but it's simply unmissable whether you're a Sega fan or not. These games are like the Super Smash Bros. For Sega. You may have not played Skies of Arcadia, but you're going to want to after playing the track. You're going to want to know who all these characters are and where they're from, and so it continues to be baffling that they dropped all of this. We're about to be 2 entries on from Transformed with Team Sonic Racing and Sonic Racing Crossworlds. But when Team Sonic Racing came out, I really didn't care for it. We didn't just lose all the fun Sega crossovers, but we lost the transformation mechanic. It felt like we were reverting back to the first game, and that's even more evident with the tracks. It's a 3-act structure again. So there's 7 zones that have 3 really similar tracks in each one, and 8 of them are from the original Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Transformed has tracks in here too. Or should I say, track. There's one Transformed track. It really was a bummer. But with time, I have come to appreciate what it actually does. The team mechanic is really good. It's not just about what position you finish in, but instead you calculate the average of your team. And so you've got to help each other out by riding their trails or shooting items over to one another. I don't think the concept really comes out when playing with CPU, but with actual humans, communicating can be thrilling. Throwing someone a defensive item just as they need it. Communication is key. Only problem though, no one is really playing this game online. And that's not just because this game is a little bit old now. I couldn't find people the week this game came out. But because this is a Sonic game, the music is incredible. They even got Crush 40 back for the main theme. The new courses, while there aren't that many of them and many fall into similar themes, they are genuinely good and they look beautiful. And they have made the items cohesively themed this time with wisps. They mostly serve the exact same purpose as items from Transformed, but I think it was easier to tell what they did in Transformed. Here you just get a little alien guy and you've got to work out what to do with it. There's a full story this time too, completely voice acted, and while that's cool, I couldn't really engage with it. You've got to go all out with the cutscenes like Sonic Riders and Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, otherwise I just don't really care. Team Sonic Racing is not a bad game, and it's not even not a great game. If you can get real people together, or real people online, that team mechanic is really fun. But when playing the game any other way, with CPU, it's just kind of a universal step back from Transformed. And prepare for the most dull handheld explanation yet, the Switch version is the same game, only it runs at 30 FPS. It's pretty good, but I missed the DS game, that was cool. But we're not done! There's also Sonic Racing on Apple Arcade. Did they drop the team mechanic? No. No, this is Team Sonic Racing, it's just called Sonic Racing. I don't understand. This is like an abridged version of the main game. The controls are way more simple to work with a touchscreen, and some tracks have been shaved down or somewhat redesigned, which, that makes them a bit more unique. I don't think this is a particularly fun game, it's just Team Sonic Racing but kind of lesser. But they actually updated this version, not the console version, this one. And I'm not talking about an update just a few months after launch, I'm talking years, multiple years worth of updates. In fact, the last update was just a few months ago, with brand new stages. There's even new characters too, including classic Sonic in the car from Sonic Drift, which I'm sorry is probably the coolest thing in any version of Team Sonic Racing. What are you doing here, classic Sonic in the Sonic Drift car? Do you understand how cool you are? And while Cross Worlds isn't out yet as of this recording, I think it's a universally more interesting game than Team Sonic Racing. I mean, there's Sonic and the Secret Rings tracks, how couldn't it be? I don't want to date this video by giving you my network test impressions, but let's just say, this one seems promising. And phew! This is every Sega Superstars game. Does this count? Does Sonic Superstars count as a Sega Superstars game? Probably not. Not a massive series, but they love to make bespoke versions of every single game. And like a fool, I bought all of them! I really hope the brand isn't dead and returns in the future. Sonic may have a lot of source material to work with on his own, but it's just more fun to make it a full-on Sega celebration. I want tennis back. I want Sega Superstars Party. I want another golf game that you can actually play. I want Sega Superstars RPG, which I guess is kind of Project Cross Zone, but I think you can do more than that. I want them to go all out and make everything Sega Superstars, okay? I want a Yakuza game where you can punch Tails. Sincerely, I hope this does continue. I understand why Sonic Racing Cross Worlds has gone in on just Sonic. There's a lot of Sonic to work with, he's the most popular one. But I always feel like, raising tides raise a ship. That's not how the saying goes. I think Sonic is a great way to just bolster the rest of Sega. Like, if you haven't heard of Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi or Space Channel 5, allow Sonic to introduce you. Allow him to be the Sega curator. Let him show you all these cool franchises you may have missed and then use them as a way to usher in reboots or whatever else. That's what this game was to me. Like, this let me experience Space Channel 5 for the first time, and I'm really glad that it did. And I imagine a lot of people saw that big old Sonic on the box and said, "What's that? What's that monkey guy there?" And then they went on to play Monkey Ball, and they discovered it is in fact one of the best games ever made. So that's why Sega Superstars is important, and why I hope it continues in the future. But I don't just want it back in racing, I want it in everything. I want everything to be Sega Superstars. You understand? I would like Virtua Fighter to return. Kind of like Fighters Megamix, which... that was kind of the first Sega Superstars. I'm only realizing this in the outro of the video. That gave us like Fighting Vipers versus the car from Daytona, USA. That was the first Sega Superstars. I've got to go grab the box. God damn it, why do I realize these things while the video is ending? Yes. Let's just give it a shout out. Fighters Megamix for the Sega Saturn. Man, how did I not put this in here? Leave an angry comment. I'm angry. I'll leave an angry comment. On a fake account. You got to figure out who it is. See you next time. Bye, everyone.